Racing Mindcast, the show that helps athletes slow down their mind so that they can race past their limits. I'm Chris Haig.
And I'm Morgan Bickenbach-Davies.
And welcome to all our audio listeners, and welcome to all of our YouTube watchers. This week we are going to be covering, as a rundown of the show, continuing with our three-part series, so our three-part programming. First part of the show, we're going to be tackling athletic identity, and especially, in particular, how athletes, when injured, can preserve their athletic identity. It's a hot button issue because I know a lot of athletes suffer from injuries, and when they do suffer from injuries, usually depression follows because they feel like they've lost a part of themselves. So that's going to be part one. Part two is going to be what, Morgan?
As always, the product review. So we're going to be testing a new bar on the market.
Relatively new bar.
Well, yes. I mean, it's been a few months, but new-ish to us now that we're in Canada, and it's not in Canada yet. So we got these particular ones down south.
And down south means in the States, not down in the deep south.
No, lower 49.
Yeah.
We're just going to be doing a review of those, and then
the Quest Heroes, and then we're going to be continuing our Year of Fear. And this week, my year of fear was, or my fear experience was not tracking my macros. I stopped using MyFitnessPal for a week, so that's going to be fun to talk about. And what did you do this week?
Well, I have yet to do it, but it will be editing these videos, and we can talk about more in the last section, but that's just a preview.
With that, let's dive into the first part of the show and talk about athletic identity. So, if you have read or if you've listened to a couple other endurance podcasts, you might have known that Leslie Patterson, whom both of us are coached by, and her husband Simon Marshall have just put out a book called The Brave Athlete: How to Calm the F Down. And you can obviously fill in the expletive for yourself. But in that, they have a whole entire chapter on athletic identity and the trickiness of athletic identity, because a lot of people what they've encountered in their years of coaching, and I'm sure you know someone like this, or you yourself are someone like this, someone who says, oh, I'm not really an athlete, I don't really compete at a high level, I'm not that great,
I've never won anything.
Yeah. I just go out and jog. And they're very self-deprecating, and they're self-critical, and they don't want to accept that they're athletic identity. And then you also have other people who, in the book, they particularly describe people who are showboating. So they're, I did this race, and I did this race, and I did this time, this pace, and I was able to put out this number of watts, and I have so many KOMs on this course. And then you see them at the next race, and they don't even make the podium. So there's a disjuncted athletic identity there. And they have a bunch of other profiles there that, when I was reading through the book myself, I could definitely feel like I can relate to that person, I can relate to that person, I can relate to that person. So they definitely boiled down many of the archetypes into the book. So I definitely recommend reading the book. But in particularly, we wanted to focus on, in today's podcast, injury and athletic identity.
Yeah, so really, how do you preserve your athletic identity when you are not physically doing athletic activities?
And we've both gone through this. So whether it was running in high school or, when I was coming back from my eating disorder in high school, I was forbade to do any athletic exercise. And that was devastating to me because the doctor said you either go into inpatient or you stop exercising. Yeah. And I obviously I made the former choice of not going inpatient and taking the blow of not being able to exercise. But throughout that, I really struggled with not being able to run and not being able to bike or do anything. Granted that in the long run of things, that was for the better because I wasn't in a physical place to be able to do that. But later on down the road, when I was able to get back to exercise in college, I suffered a couple of different injuries where I wasn't able to run.
Mm-hmm.
And that was devastating because I would go to practice and I would help out Coach Heights with practicing and times and everything. But watching everyone else achieve their goals and achieve their runs and not being able to do it myself, that was hard.
Yeah.
And then also getting injured now, whenever I see someone racing on Facebook or posting awesome, podium finishes, or just being able to log a run, that's difficult. So, when you lose what you love to do and you've been so involved in it,
Mm-hmm.
it can be significantly devastating to you having lost that.
Well, it's what Les and Sai say in the book about when that piece of your identity overpowers the other pieces of your identity, it is a recipe for disaster, because that such a big keystone is taken out of your life. You have nothing left to fall back on. So it's out of balance with the rest of your life, and how to form a mature athletic identity is making sure that it is only one component of the other, of the whole of your identity. So it is one branch of multiple branches of a whole identity. So you have your teacher branch, your sister branch, your teacher again, athlete branch, your wife branch. So you have to keep all of those equally as strong to maintain an integral whole.
And I really like that section of the book because they distinguish between having a strong identity versus a mature identity. And to them, mature is fully grown and not developed at the expense of the other parts of your identity.
Precisely.
Versus strong, which is powerful and can overpower the other identities.
It's overpowering.
So thinking back to all the other times where I've struggled with depression when I haven't been able to exercise, I think I definitely had a strong athletic identity.
Yeah, too strong.
Too strong, exactly. And when I was dealing with those injuries, I had to step back and say, one of the ways I dealt with it is I had to step back and look at all those other branches and make those equally as strong so that they were balanced, especially when I was able to get back to exercise and running, that I kept those in balance. So it wasn't only I am Chris the runner, I am Chris the triathlete, I'm just Chris, and I have all these different facets.
You have the opportunity, going back to the attitude of gratitude, you have the opportunity to enrich the other parts of your identity while you can't fulfill one branch of them to the fullest that you want to.
So I think that's one way a person who is injured can cope with the inability to do what they love to do, whether it's running or swimming or bicycling. So that's one way, is to look at the other areas in your life and to strengthen them so that it comes into balance with your athletic identity.
Yeah, so when you're fully recovered from said injury, you have, in the meantime, enriched the other parts of your identity, so you come back to your athletic endeavor as a better whole.
I like that.
Which is, in essence, a better athlete. So it's a much more sustainable athlete, it's a much more balanced athlete, and it's a much stronger athlete as a whole.
I also think that's a great preventative measure.
Yeah.
That when you are able to train, even if you are not injured or you're firing all four cylinders, that you step back and make sure you're not grasping at that athletic identity. And I think constant reminders of that will prevent you from spiraling down if it is taken away.
Right. It's always important to keep tabs on the other the other strengths of your identity. So to make sure that everything keeps in balance, everything's in equilibrium, you have to constantly be checking to make sure that you're not letting anything slip through the cracks in your parenting, in your job, in your self-care. All of those things have to stay equal, otherwise you get one overpowering the other and you get an imbalanced athlete.
I also think of fluidity. And I've struggled with this, especially I've read a lot of Buddhist texts, and in Buddhism you're always striving to dissolve the ego and kind of dissolve the identity, which is often at opposition to what we have in Eastern or Western society, which is a firm identity.
You need labels.
We want a mature identity.
You need labels. Yeah.
And in Buddhism, they say you shouldn't have any labels at all because it's not there.
But,
and so there's a fluidity there with your identity. And I've had to do a lot of reading on this to try to make a concept, and I've come up with kind of seeing your identity as this flame. That while the flame is always jumping around and it's never the same in each moment, it's always burning at a different angle.
Right.
That the flame is still there.
It just takes different forms.
It just takes different forms. And I think taking that mindset to our identity, whether you're injured or not, helps with that. Saying what I am right now will be different from where I am at the end of the day, will be different from where I am at tomorrow. There are definitely different parts of me that will remain the same, at least for today. Like I'm able to run, or I'm able to study or research, or I'm interested in this. But taking a more fluid or to draw upon the flame analogy, a flammable of burning in different directions, but making sure that you're not grasping at it too tightly, and recognizing the fact and meditating on the fact that that part of you will change, and not to grasp at it.
Yeah, it's the practice of non-attachment in a nutshell. Like it's a constant practice that you have to do throughout your life to keep track of your attachment to the different identities of yourself. So
different schemas and concepts.
Exactly. That if you become too attached and it's
too
threatened, if it's threatened or disappears or is destroyed, what are you? And that can be, existential. I mean, that can get
which is why so many people suffer with depression.
Because with retirement, with injury, with loss, a lot of that comes from a very strong attachment to what used to be. So I think it's a very good Buddhist practice to remind yourself that this is impermanent. All of it is impermanent. Oh, getting way too deep. Sorry.
And in turn, that gives you a deeper respect for your identity and savoring that part of your identity while it's still there.
Being grateful for what you have when you have it, but not coveting it.
Yeah, it links back to last week's episode on gratitude, which I highly encourage everyone to check out. And this, I think, tying this back into what we were talking about last week, gratitude, another way for an injured athlete to deal with the injury is to step back and take a larger, deeper perspective on themselves as an athlete. And in psychological research, it's the NASA janitor seeing himself as a person who helped put a person on the moon.
Right.
And so as an athlete, stepping back to see what are you getting out of this? What do you get out of running? What do you get out of cycling? What part of it feeds you? And then trying to find that in other ways, but also saying, even though I'm not running, can I connect with the running community or with the triathlon community? And so expanding your identity to be beyond one activity to a larger perspective.
Right. So maintaining that tie, even if you cannot participate in the same way throughout your whole, I don't want to say career, but the entire time that you participate, the way you participate can change to maintain those ties, to maintain what you get out of it, be that community, be that encouragement, be that endorphins, whatever it is. Find other ways, alternative ways that you can fall back on if you are ever injured, if you ever have a change in circumstances, that you can maintain those ties, because you get an injury, all those ties get cut off, or you can cut them off yourself. You isolate.
Which most people do.
Yeah, you isolate yourself almost as if you're putting yourself in quarantine, like you're contagious, which is not the case.
And I think that's important for coaches, if you coach high school or college athletics, to recognize is that most injured athletes like to isolate themselves.
Right, want to retreat.
And I think finding a different role for what they do on the team will help them to prevent that isolation.
It also maintains a sense of value, that maintaining a sense of community, maintaining your participation in it, bolsters your self-confidence and the fact that this is temporary.
Right.
That this can change. You can get back to where you once were or better.
Right.
I think it's very important to keep the big picture in mind. That how you feel today is not how you're going to feel tomorrow, in a month, in a year. And I think it's important for the community to actively reach out to give reminders like that to get that person out the door.
And one final point that I want to bring up, because in my research for this show, I came across a lot of research on spinal cord injury. And your father is big in this, but a lot of studies have looked at athletic identity from people who've had spinal cord injuries and therefore paralysis. And one of the common themes that I saw in those research papers were that these people with spinal cord injuries, they didn't look at their injury as the be-all and end-all of their athletic identity. In fact, it increased their athletic identity because they were able to find other outlets to participate in. So one of them was rugby players skiers who suffered spinal cord injuries, and how they went from becoming a skier to either being a paraskier, so finding other ways to ski with their accommodating for their injury.
Some kind of a para-racer,
or finding another sport that allowed them to thrive, and that finding that other sport fed their athletic identity even though they weren't skiing anymore.
Right. So it's a transience beyond, the able-bodied athlete becomes the athlete. Just you just have to repackage something that you're used to into a new avenue. And
this is what Cy in his book, Cy and Les, call Athlete 2.0, is where you recreate another form of yourself to accommodate what's changed.
Exactly.
Be it permanent injury or temporary injury.
Yeah, so chronic or acute,
Well, that wraps up part 1 of athletic identity, and we're going to come back in just a few moments after a quick break with part 2, Buy It or Bonk, Quest Hero. And we're back with part 2, Buy It or Bonk, and we've got a special treat today. Quest Hero bars. So while Morgan sets up, I will kind of give you a lowdown on the Quest Hero bars. I think it was earlier this year, Quest rolled out.
Like in the spring?
In the spring. I remember GNC had I remember getting an email at work. This is how much I like Quest bars.
And you paged me.
Almost in the middle of class. I had to wait till the end of class.
Emergency text.
Forward it immediately saying, go to GNC if you can to pick these bars up. Because they were given away for free at GNC, and I definitely wanted to try them. So Quest, their typical protein bars is the typical protein bars, and now they've made them more into a candy bar.
Yeah.
And I've tried them before. I haven't tried all of them, and I haven't tried them recently, so I'm excited to try them on screen for you all.
You're like a kid in a candy store.
All right. What flavors do we have today?
Okay, so let's go with the chocolatey one first, because you know me.
Right.
So
I will show the audience.
They're really...
So it does look like a candy bar.
Right off the bat, though, they are really chalky. The coating does not stay on well.
No.
And it melts really fast. I don't know if you can see that, but it's melted all over there. So macro-wise, we've got 200 calories for the bar. It's a 60 gram bar as usual. 11 fat, 11 fiber. 27 carb, 12 sugar, and 15 protein.
So less protein than your typical protein bar.
Yeah.
Your typical Quest bar.
Higher
less
fat.
Fiber, higher fat, and higher sugar.
Well, the sugar is because they're using something called allulose, which they say FDA requires them to use a sugar, but it isn't metabolized the same way. So
I think we need to break out the glucometers next time.
Yeah, allegedly it's not real sugar, but it's an O's, so...
O's, so it has to be...
It's some kind of a sugar. Anyway.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Great podcasting here.
Absolutely.
You can most likely hear the crunch on both on camera and Ooh. And,
Crumbly.
On the podcast.
Not
Crumbly.
Not a fan.
It's got crunchy bits in it, so I would assume it has some sort of whey protein Krispies.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also has like a caramel layer goo, like a Snickers.
It tastes like a brownie.
It tastes exactly like a brownie.
And I'm not a fan.
It's cheap chocolate brownie. It tastes much more like a candy bar than it does a protein bar.
I hate chocolate, and that is too much chocolate.
I think there are better protein bars out there, but I'm still gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10.
4.
I believe you are biased, my dear.
Well, yeah. Your point, sir. All right, let's go. The next two are white chocolate, so I'm happy about that. So let's go with the...
What flavor is this?
This is the caramel one, I think. Here, you show the folks at home.
All right. So we have, it looks vanilla coating, caramel layer right here.
And that's what it's supposed to
look like. And then we also get
like.
whey Krispies here.
And we're going to have pictures at the end, so don't fret. So macros...
Once again, allulose.
Yeah, but the macros are very different for the last two. So we got 170 for the bar, 9 fat, 29 carb, 12 sugar, 10 fiber, and 16 protein. So different. Same.
This one has pecans in it too.
What? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. According to the ingredients list.
Nowhere in there.
Yep.
I don't see any.
I get a pecan.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah. All right, bottoms up.
Belly bite.
It's crispier.
That was a mistake. I took it.
Are you getting like a burnt flavor?
I'm just getting too much in my mouth flavor. Really sweet.
Yeah, it's cloyingly sweet.
I don't get caramel. I just get...
I get vanilla coating.
I get artificial sweetener punch. That's all. That's all I get.
I get vanilla coating too.
Yeah. It's a bit like you know what it tastes like? It tastes like Oreo filling. That's all it tastes like.
That's dead on accurate.
With like the texture of caramel, but all I taste is like if you just ate the filling of an Oreo and that's it. And that's
or you put the coating, the goo from the Snickers onto an Oreo. So you know how when you break apart a Snickers, it has that string?
Kinda.
The caramel string. That's if you put that on an Oreo, that's what you would get.
Confession, I don't think I've actually ever had a Snickers.
I haven't had a Snickers in eons.
Okay.
All right,
last but not
one.
least, hopefully. This one's pretty. It's got purple in it.
Is this blueberry?
I think it's supposed to be like blueberry cobbler or something.
It smells like blueberry. It smells like berry. It smells like artificial berry.
It's definitely berry.
So
blueberry cobbler flavor, yeah.
Once again, you get the vanilla coating, and then you get the berry. What cobbler?
Blueberry cobbler.
Blueberry cobbler
is what they're saying it is.
You get the berry, and then I think soy Krispies again.
You get a faint smell of berry. I'm not sure if it's blueberry. So macros: 170, 7 fat, 30 carb, 13 sugar, 10 fiber, and 17 protein. So they're all very different. Or not very different, but variations. Right.
The blueberry is so strong. It reminds me of last week's blueberry.
Whoa.
Let's see what Krispies they used.
Probably the same as their cereal bars. We haven't reviewed yet.
They're coming, trust us. If I don't eat them before the show.
Well, at least with this, you get like a bit of variation in flavor. You got some blueberry, and then you get the Oreo coating or the Oreo filling flavor, but still very, very sweet.
Too sweet.
If you're sensitive to sweet, I would avoid this.
Yeah.
At all costs.
So, to give you a rundown of the allulose. Allulose is a rare sugar that is very different than regular sugar. Both rare and regular are in quotes. It tastes like sugar, but it's up to 100% of it passes through the body without being metabolized. It has almost 0 calories, less than 0.4 calories per gram, and doesn't affect your body like regular sugar. Allulose is found in nature in many fruits, and it's what makes Quest Hero Bars taste great without the extra net carbs and calories. I'm going to call BS... Ooh, these are made in Canada.
Woohoo!
Why are they made in Canada, but they're not sold in Canada?
Because we have cheaper labor. I don't know.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah, made in Canada.
It makes it sound like it's made by Keebler elves or something.
Most likely is. On the Keebler.
The magical sugars.
The magical.
The calorie-free sugar.
Anyway, we will. I think overall.
Okay, wait. So the last two, what did you rate the caramel one? What did you give that?
I'm gonna give it another 8.5, and I'm gonna give this one an 8 because just the berry is just too overpowering.
I'm gonna give both the caramel and the blueberry 6. Because way too sweet.
I think we need to test allulose. I think we need to break out the glucometers again and test it out. I would be interested.
That might be a little extra featurette coming your way.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Alrighty, and that wraps up Buy It or Bonk, and on to our next segment, the Year of Fear. And part 3, the Year of Fear. What did you tackle or going to tackle this week, and why?
I still got time. So
still got time.
Yeah, this week I'm going to edit the YouTube video because I'm really uncomfortable looking at myself on camera. That really skeeves me out because I get really critical and look at all the things that I don't like about my face and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to hunker down and do that and probably do a few of them just to get used to it. Also make your life a lot easier with not having to be the only one editing. So it's, I had the motivation because it's a team building exercise, and it also helps me just get over that, like, that feeling of not liking to see myself on camera or on film in the same way that I don't like listening to my own voice. So this is 2 in 1. So, so what's yours?
Cool. Well, you also get to choose the music.
Oh, boy. Choices.
No more R&B. Poop. No more Kanye West. Anywho, I started on Monday, and we're recording this on Thursday, and I am no longer tracking my meals in MyFitnessPal.
For this week?
For this week. And I'm finding this much more difficult than I expected. So the reason why I like tracking my food in MyFitnessPal, and I'm not very strict about tracking. I do take, if I take a nibble of something, I won't write it down. But I found that I liked tracking, and it gave me a general ballpark of my calories, so that I could feel like if I had some wiggle room to include something else, I was free, but it at least sent me a baseline of minimum what I was eating. And I've been doing this for years and years and years. And I think I had a 650 day streak in MyFitnessPal of days that I tracked. And so on Monday, I stopped tracking. And it was interesting because all throughout Monday, I kept on reaching for my phone around mealtime to figure out, to plug stuff in. And I kept on reminding myself, no, I'm not going to track it. And then I also fell into the trying to track it in my mind in ballpark calories.
Or underestimate.
And underestimate. And so it's been interesting to see the emotions come up of anxiety, a fear of overeating. And it's been very interesting, and I've been curious in approaching this of what am I feeling right now, and it's definitely gotten me more in touch with my dependence that I was on tracking calories, how out of tune I was with my body because I relied on that for hunger cues, relied on MyFitnessPal for hunger cues, rather than relying on what my body was telling me. And I've had to switch over to listening more to my body to figure out what to eat and how much I should eat, rather than a number on my app. So it's been an interesting experience, and I'm going to have to do a very good thorough write-up for the blog post on it. But it's been enlightening, and I don't mean the ice cream. It's been enlightening to see my reaction to it, because I just didn't realize how dependent I was on it.
Have you noticed if you feel more urges to restrict?
And I felt that every single day of not tracking, of restricting because I was afraid
That,
of going over what my calories were.
like rounding up, or just saying, okay, I'll skip this so that,
Just in case.
Just in case, exactly.
So I've had to be very conscious of that, so I don't.
And how do you override that?
That's a good question. Since then, I've been focusing on, well, how do I override that? Listening to my body, and if my body's telling me I'm hungry, then chances are I should eat something. And listening to, I've had to slow down my eating more so that I can pick up on my hunger cues.
So being more mindful.
So listening to my body for caloric intake, and so being more mindful while I eat, slowing down when I'm eating, so I can listen to my body to figure out when I should stop eating. And relying on hunger cues rather than number cues.
Interesting.
So it's continuing on. Will I continue to not track? I don't know. Another fear of mine is intuitive eating, which is going to be another week. I don't think I'll do it next week.
So how is that different than what you've been doing this week?
So intuitive eating, I find more of what is my body craving. Oh, so I haven't been changing what types of food I've been eating this week. I've been kind of sticking to the same foods. So you've been
doing autopilot, just not tracking.
Yes, and that was autopilot to some extent, but we've been traveling earlier this week, so it threw a curveball into what I typically eat.
Yeah.
So I've had to tweak what I've been eating moderately. With intuitive eating, it's more, am I craving a bowl of cereal now? What is my body craving right now? And listening to those cues.
What I have a problem with that whole movement, like the whole kind of intuitive eating movement, is that I don't know how to distinguish between what your mind is telling you and what your body is telling you, because the two are connected and they interplay. So how do you isolate? My body is craving XYZ rather than I am craving XYZ, or my mind is. Like, how do you in the moment tweeze that apart to know that your body needs carbs versus your brain just saying, I need something nostalgic right now?
Call up your little microbiomes and say, all right, little effers, what do you want right now?
Barring that.
Yeah, that's going to be something I'm going to experiment with later.
I think that would be interesting to read your post about that, because that's something I've always been confused about for myself, that I find that distinction very hard to isolate.
And I think for people recovering from eating disorders and disordered eating,
it would be dangerous.
Not tracking calories can be dangerous because you do lie to, and that's what I found to myself is I've been lying to I lie to myself, and I have to catch myself on this. I lie to myself about how many calories I've eaten, or what I've eaten, or how large my portions have been. Right,
because you have distorted, you have a distorted view of portion size, of just and overall perception of what you eat. When it comes to food, we have a very distorted view, by and large, and then we'll go up and down depending on stress levels and other stuff like that. So I think it's very important to have an external check in place, just to be
external
safe.
check, but also I think everyone should strive for a deeper connection with their body and what their body is telling me, and that's just very woo woo. But I think that's a goal everyone should have. But it's also a deep fear of trusting your body, and that's where my disorder eating takes shape. Is not trusting my body, not trusting myself. So this week's been interesting, and definitely check out the blog post, because I'll go a lot more in depth into that, and you can. Good place to wrap up. You can find that blog post and other blog posts like it at braveheartcanada.com. You can also see other episodes from Racing Mindcast on braveheartcanada.com and our YouTube channel, braveheartcanada.com. So make sure you like and make sure you subscribe. Also, if you're a MyFitnessPal user, and addictively so, like I was, comment below and let us know how you deal with and why you track your calories in food.
Or why not?
Or why not? Also, if you're listening to the podcast, go to our YouTube channel. Hit like, hit subscribe.
You're turning into a car salesman. Oh no, this isn't good.
But you can also, you can. I'm not a car salesman. I do not have grease in my hair, and I shaved, so my mustache is not as twirly as a car salesman.
Or a hipster.
Or a hipster.
Either or, not good.
So, with that, I think it's a good place to end the podcast. We are over time, but thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, just wanted to let you know, don't forget to breathe.